about 16 and a half years ago, because my daughter's going to be 17, so she was about 3 months old. So about 16 and a half years ago, found myself in a really tough spot. Grew up in the church my whole life, been a Christian my whole life. My life was just turning in a direction that I didn't expect, and I was really, really frustrated with God. So in a period of about, I would say, a year and a half, my mom, who was like my biggest fan, she's the one that introduced me to Christ when I was, just a kid. She got cancer, and she passed away. And then shortly after that, maybe about 6 months after that, my wife leaves, and so now I end up being divorced, and I've got these 3 little kids. And I remember moving into this little apartment, like 500 square foot apartment with these 3 little kids, and I remember like going into my living room and praying, and I'm like, well, God, I'm pretty mad at you because it can't really get much worse than this. And then the next day I got laid off of my job. So what, in retrospect and looking back, what God was really trying to do, I grew up knowing really well, I thought how to take care of myself, like I could get myself out of any situation. Was always pretty good at sports and school and that sort of thing. I came to a point where I became totally dependent on God and had to totally surrender over to Him. And so over the next maybe week after that, I actually got down on my hands and knees in my living room, and I said, God, whatever it is that you want to do in my life, I surrender it to you, and I will trust you with it. And I can fast forward now to 16 years. My life has been amazing. It's been amazing to be able to trust God each day. My daughter Emily is going to be 17 next week. She won Player of the Game last week in basketball. She gets really, really good grades. I got an awesome daughter, Avery. She's a freshman at UVM. And my son is 26. He was in a motorcycle accident about 10 months ago that he really should have died from, and should have lost his foot, and God spared his life. And then my life has just been, it's just been a wonderful journey. And so the thing that God taught me through that was trust Him, because He's trustworthy. And then coming to the church, like shortly after that discussion 16 years ago, I found this church. So I'm bringing these 3 kids into church, and the church just kind of reinforced that. One, they had a place in the nursery for my kids. They had a youth group for my son. The message, the worship, it just all kind of, meshed together. And these past 16 years have really been different than the 16 years before that, because I really learned to surrender myself over to God, and He's been there every single step of the way. When I surrendered to God and He said, it's all going to be okay, I'm going to take care of you, He also gave this outpouring of grace where He said, I knew all this stuff was going to happen. I don't love you any less now than I did before it were happened, and my love isn't changing because of this situation. And that grace came in and just flooded my heart, and I went from being ashamed to not being ashamed at all.